My name is Mark Thompson. I'm 55 years old, and I've been driving trucks across the country for most of my life. People say driving is risky, but to me, the road has always been life itself. This story is something I've never fully told anyone because most truckers would just laugh. But what I experienced that night is still vivid in my memory. A few years ago, I had a delivery to a small industrial town in the Appalachian Mountains. I was transporting heavy machinery for a road construction project. After picking up the equipment in Charleston, West Virginia, my planned route was Charleston, Morgantown, Clarksburg, Wheeling, Pittsburgh, then straight to the mountains. It was going to take roughly 2 days and 2 nights. The road was rough and the truck groaned under the weight, but that was just another day for me. I used to sleep in the truck whenever I got tired. But after a robbery a few months earlier, 2 guys tried to rob me on a rural highway. I started bringing a small camping tent to sleep safely off of the road. That evening, after passing Pittsburgh, I took a smaller highway into the mountains. It was cold and dark. I got a message from the company warning me that the site was remote and the road was rough, suggesting I rest if I arrived late. I was exhausted, but I pushed on until I found a clearing just big enough to park the truck and set up my tent a short distance away, hidden among some trees. Out of habit, I hung a small wind chime on my tent as a makeshift alert in case anyone approached. I lay down to rest. After a while, I thought I had fallen asleep, but then I heard the wind chime jingle lightly, like someone had brushed it. I opened my eyes. Silence. Then the chime jingled again. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside. Nothing. I returned to the tent, but soon I heard soft footsteps outside, multiple barefoot moving over rocks. Then I heard faint laughter, a child's laughter, but it didn't sound right. I shone the flashlight into the darkness. Nothing. Then the wind chime started moving violently, as if someone was shaking it. The footsteps circled my tent. Heavy, irregular breathing joined the sounds. Small, eerie giggles echoed around me, though no one was visible. From under the truck, I suddenly heard rapid movement, as if something was running on all fours. I shone the flashlight. Shadows moved across the clearing, disappearing as soon as the light hit. I noticed a small, child-sized figure near the truck, but when I focused on it, it vanished. Inside the tent, my heart raced. Then I heard a whisper, my name spoken in a thin, eerie voice. Footsteps stopped near the tent wall. The flashlight revealed a shadow of a small figure on the tent, moving as if touching the fabric with tiny hands. The wind chime fell to the ground with a loud clatter. At that moment, I knew this was no ordinary event. Outside, the footsteps ran away with faint laughter, and in the morning I discovered dozens of small footprints circling the truck, leading to it, but none returning. I packed up quickly and drove to the nearest rest station. Other truckers there went silent when I told them the story. One said it wasn't the first time people had experienced strange, child-sized shadows in that area of the Appalachian Mountains. After that night, I never camped in that forest again. Even today, whenever I drive that route, I can't forget the sound of the chime and the faint, haunting laughter of something unseen. My name is Brian, and I live in Ohio. I usually listen to scary stories online, but what happened to me one summer was scarier than anything I had ever heard. It was 2022, the second day of the 4th of July weekend. 6 of us cousins decided to go on a small adventure outside the city. My extended family owns a cabin near Riverview in Maple County, and next to it is a dense forest that locals call Shadow Grove. I thought it would be perfect for a barbecue party and a night camping out. I called my cousin Tyler and told him to prepare the chicken and drinks and that we'd reach the cabin by 5 p.m. Tyler invited some of his friends from nearby towns too, so altogether we were 16 people. We reached the edge of the forest just as the sun was setting. The road leading into the forest was rough and narrow. Only dirt bikes or trucks could go through. By the time we arrived, it was almost dark and the forest felt quiet and foreboding. The trees were thick, blocking most of the fading sunlight. We quickly set up 2 campsites for our group. One was closer to the river and the other was a bit deeper in the forest. The river ran calmly, and it was unusually still for that time of night. The barbecue was ready and we started eating and talking. The night felt fun at first, but there was a strange uneasiness in the air. Around 1 a.m., a few of us, my cousins and I, sat in one of the camps watching an Indian horror movie on a small projector. Suddenly, my cousin Jason said he was thirsty and wanted to fetch some water. We walked to a small tap nearby. As we drank, a strong gust of wind suddenly blew past us. We covered our eyes and held onto each other. We thought nothing of it at first, but then Tyler suggested we explore a little further. As we stepped deeper into the forest, we heard a faint scream. We froze. I told everyone it must be some animal, but then the scream came again, louder and sharper this time. We looked around and Jason was gone. Panic set in immediately. We shouted his name, but there was no response. We ran forward and found him standing a few feet away, facing someone or something, but no one was there. We grabbed him and hurried back toward the camp. Then a branch snapped sharply across my back. I turned quickly, but there was nothing, just the branch on the ground. As we approached the small tap, we noticed that water was flowing, though no one had turned it on. We were terrified and ran back to camp as fast as possible. Jason told us that while he was standing there alone, he had felt invisible hands around him and had heard children laughing. The laughter was high-pitched, playful, but also unnerving, almost inhuman. We stayed awake all night. Shadows moved between the trees, circling our campsites. We could hear whispers of our names, footsteps going around, and occasional giggles that seemed to come from nowhere. It was impossible to see anyone, but the sounds were real. By 2 a.m., we noticed the shadows moving closer. At one point, Jason thought he saw small silhouettes near the river. Their movements were quick and jerky, like children running, but something about them was unnatural. We were too scared to sleep. Even lying in the tents, we could hear small footsteps circling outside, occasional taps on the tents, and soft whispers that sounded almost human, but distorted. I swear the sounds of those footsteps, the giggling, and the wind hitting the trees created a terrifying symphony that kept us frozen in fear. As dawn approached, we saw dozens of small footprints on the dirt paths around our campsites. They were child-sized, some barefoot, some like they had shoes, but none of them led away. It was as if they appeared and vanished. We left immediately. Jason even visited a local mystic who gave him a protective charm to wear around his neck. After that night, none of us ever returned to Shadow Grove, but the memory of that night, the laughter, the shadows, the unseen presences still haunts us. Hi, my name is Alex. I've been listening to your stories for a long time, and today I want to share something that happened to me. I can't reveal my real name or exact location, but let's just say I'm from a small town in Ohio. Near my town, there's a dense forest that people often pass through to get to other villages. This story actually happened to my grandfather, and I'm telling it as he told me. It was winter, and the rice fields were ready to be harvested. To clean the rice, they used a large metal drum, hitting the stalk so the grains would fall. The next morning, after the dawn, my grandfather planned to start the harvesting, but the drum he needed had been borrowed by someone from the neighboring town. People often help each other like this. So my grandfather decided to go get it himself. He took his axe with him for protection because he had to walk through the forest and wild animals could appear. He crossed the forest to the next town and got the drum. The villagers offered him tea, saying, "You can't leave without a cup of tea." After a quick tea, he began walking back, carrying the drum on his shoulder. As night fell, the forest grew darker. Suddenly, he heard someone calling his name from behind, but he didn't stop or look back. He sensed something was wrong. A little further, he started hearing the cries of a child, growing louder and more intense. He kept walking, but then he felt like something was following him. The sound of footsteps on the leaves matched someone running quickly. Then stones started hitting the drum on his shoulder. My grandfather realized that whatever it wasn't going to let him go. He tried to stay calm, thinking if he panicked, it would take over him. His body began sweating from fear, even in the cold. Suddenly, 3 figures appeared. They were huge, almost 8 feet tall. Their hair was wild, and their eyes glowed red in the darkness. My grandfather thought he would not survive. He immediately started hitting the drum with his axe while calling out, trying to protect himself. Within a minute, the figures ran away screaming. Back at home, his family was worried because he hadn't returned yet. Relatives went looking for him, and when they found him, he was exhausted and feverish. After telling the story, a local healer came, performed some rituals, and finally my grandfather felt relief. That was a small incident that happened in our town, but it stayed with him for life. He told me everything as it happened, and now I'm sharing it with you.